Hi guys, welcome to chapter 7, which is all about the internet. So let's talk about the importance of the internet. We'll talk about different types of internet connections, look at some different web browsers, demonstrate how to navigate the web, though I'm sure you're very versed in navigating the web since you are taking an online course. Okay. And then talk about how to evaluate the credibility of information found on the web, which, as you know, is a topic that's in the news daily as far as fake news and incorrect information. Okay. So if I were to ask you to please define the internet for me, okay, in the simplest terms, I would want you to tell me that the internet is a network of networks connecting billions of computers globally. That's it. Okay, plain and simple. Underneath it here, we have a little timeline, which you're welcome to peruse at your convenience. But we are going to talk about how the internet came about. So I'm pretty sure this timeline is in your book. So how did it all get started? Okay, well, the whole concept of the internet was developed in the late 1950s while the United States was in the midst of the Cold War with the Soviet Union. All right. At that time, the U.S. Department of Defense needed a computer system that wouldn't be easily disrupted in the event of an attack. So the Cold War was, everyone was afraid that everyone was going to get nuked, basically, bombed by the other country. So, the U.S. wanted to make sure that, not the general public, but that the government would have a way to communicate even in the midst of such an attack. Okay, so we are also in the space race at this time. We are in this great race with the Soviet Union to be the first country to actually have something go up into space. Okay, so these are all these crazy, brilliant minds working, both countries, working hard, trying to outsmart each other constantly. And in 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first space satellite, which was Sputnik. Okay, Sputnik. So you probably have heard of Sputnik before. Maybe you weren't sure what it was, but all Sputnik was the first space satellite. Okay, and that was put into space by the Soviet Union. So of course, us being the United States, we did not like that. We did not like that we were not the first to put something into space. So, we started working on other ways to get into space. And actually, a little bit off topic, there's a really great movie, in my opinion, called Hidden Figures that just came out recently, and it gives you some information behind the brilliant minds working at NASA, and that were doing the computing and the computations necessary to get all this stuff working. Okay, so Soviet Union launches Sputnik. Our Department of Defense responds with something called the ARPA project. Okay, this is in the 1960s. All right, and this project was to develop a system through which information could travel. Okay, the original system was actually called ARPANET. Okay, show you that. ARPANET right there, Advanced Research Projects Agency Network. And the idea behind this project was to have multiple pathways so that losing one part of the system wouldn't cripple the entire project. All right, so this project went on to become the Internet. And the project was also known as a internetworking project. Like, note Internet there, okay? So the two men who worked on the project, the two men who are given credit for working on the project are Vinton Cerf and Robert Kahn, and they did a tremendous amount of work. You can look them up online. You can listen to talks. I believe they're both still alive. Okay, and they're generally acknowledged as the fathers of the Internet. So The internet was created to respond to these two concerns. Okay? Number one, establishing a secure form of military communications. And two, creating a means by which all computers could communicate with each other. Like I told you, the original project was called ARPANET. It had 4 sites, and these sites were located, one at the University of California at Los Angeles, okay, UCLA. One was at Stanford Research Institute. Another was at UCSB, so University of California at Santa Barbara. And the other site was the University of Utah. Okay. The first successful message on the ARPANET was sent by a UCLA student programmer. His name was Charlie Klein. It was sent at 10:30 p.m. on the 29th of October, 1969. So about, 48 years ago. Okay. Klein transmitted from the university's SDS Sigma 7 host computer to the Stanford Research Institute's SDS 940 host computer. The message text was supposed to be the word login. Okay. On an earlier attempt, he had tried to send login, and the L transmitted, the O transmitted, but then the system crashed. So the literal first message over the ARPANET was low. Okay, not login. But he tried again, and login went through. So this is a huge deal. Okay. We're sending from sorry, I'm sort of lost in my map here. Okay, from UCLA here all the way to over here to Stanford. Okay. And within less than 2 months, pretty much a month, the full 4-node network was established. So, they were able to send information or messages to each other at all 4 locations, to all of, the other locations, and very exciting. The Computer Science Network, CSNet, is a now defunct computer network that was designed to extend these networking benefits to universities and institutions that could not be directly connected to the ARPANET. Okay, ARPANET was strictly government. And so people are like, hey, this is pretty cool, and I think it'd be nice if we could use it in an educational setting. And so that's where the CSNet came about. In 1981, the NSF, which is the National Science Foundation, started a project totaling nearly $5 million to construct a computer science research network, so to construct the CSNet. And what it wanted to do was connect all groups that were engaged in computer science research. So for an NSF division with an annual budget of $25 million, this was a huge award, okay, and a very unusual commitment to a single project. So obviously the NSF saw the potential in this project. Okay. CSNet was a major milestone in providing access to national networking, which contributed to the development of the Internet. In 1991, the establishment of regional networks rendered the CSNet redundant, and so the project was shut down. But very influential in hooking us all up with the Internet. Okay. Sorry, my cold never ends, I know. Okay, so, excuse me. In the mid-1980s, the NSF created NSFNet. Okay, so now we're moving on from CSNet to NSFNet. And it gave other academic disciplines access. So it was no longer just the computer science nerds. It was saying, hey, well, I guess we'll let other people use this really cool tool as well. Okay, and so by the late 1980s, the NSFNet was the primary Internet backbone. Okay, and when I say Internet backbone, that's just referring to really one of the principal data routes between large, strategically interconnected networks and core routers on the Internet. Okay, so basically the high-speed connection points between networks. Okay, so the NSFNet was serving as this high-speed connection point. Then in 1995, the NSF backbone was decommissioned and privatized. therefore establishing the first 5 network access points. And these access points were established in Chicago, there was one in New Jersey, one in San Francisco, one in San Jose, and one in Washington, D.C. So sort of East Coast, West Coast, and slightly Middle America. Okay. Today, however, the backbone is composed of many internet exchange points around the world. So there's no longer just these 5 network access points. We now call them internet exchange points, and they're all over the world. So while many people use the terms internet and web or World Wide Web interchangeably, they are actually 2 different things. And I do this all the time. It's not a big deal. No one's going to judge you on it. I say the internet when I'm actually talking about, the World Wide Web. The internet is actually the physical entity. So we're talking about the cables and the computers and the hardware and the software, okay? The physical entity. So it's the network of computer networks. The World Wide Web is just one way that information moves on the internet. Navigation on the World Wide Web is done through hypertext. Okay, hypertext is text that contains hyperlinks. Hyperlinks. And when you click on those hyperlinks, they send you to another object on the web. Okay. So the original uses of the internet, education and research, and government, of course, have now completely been overtaken by commercial and social uses. Of course, the government's still using it. Of course, education and research are still using the internet. But, it's a social thing now. It's a thing that we do, and we use to talk to people and share little pieces of our lives. Okay, it's no longer just here's my results from the experiment I ran, and there's a lot more fun stuff on there now. Okay, so even as bandwidth and infrastructure have increased, educational and research institutions have really been unable to access the speeds and resources needed. And so as a result, something called Internet 2 was created. Okay, what it is it's a second internet for education, for research, and for collaboration. Membership to Internet 2 is limited to colleges, universities, other educational institutions, museums, art galleries, libraries, hospitals, and then any organizations that work with those institutions. Okay. As of last year, 2016, they had 314 higher education members. So not like a huge amount, obviously not every college in America, but still valid. Despite being 21 years old now. So even though we don't hear much about Internet 2, it's still in use. Okay. So, okay, great. We have the Internet. Now what? Now what do we do? We have to find a way to explore it, right? So, 2 guys named Robert Cailliau and Tim Berners-Lee developed the basic architecture of the web, and they created the first web browser. And a web browser is software that lets you display and interact with text and other media on the web. The original browser was named World Wide Web, and then they later renamed it Nexus, so as to avoid confusion with the actual World Wide Web.